Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Super excited in this EcoMotion event. And I think that we have the best panel for sure, talking about flying cars. And I think that when we talk about flying cars, these are much as part of our imaginary future as talking robots. But what has long been stuck in the science fiction sector is fast approaching reality. Investors and OEMs are pouring money into urban air mobility companies in the expectation that they will be ferrying passengers around city by the middle of this decade. So to be widely adopted, flying cars will have to move from being technologically feasible to commercially viable to socially acceptable. So I'm really happy to invite Jim, Nimrod, and Patrick to discuss with me about flying cars now and the near future. We will start with a short introduction. I will go first. So my name is Dana Teigman-Koren. I'm the CBO of Quantum Hub. Quantum Hub is an industry hub created in order to generate collaboration between industry players and technology companies. We were established by Tabura Livnat Group, the leading mobility logistics energy holding group in Israel with over 100 subsidiaries. And in addition, we work very close with our strategic partners, Hyundai, the global leading automotive corporation, VDL, which is an international industrial group who is a major player in the subcontracting and semi-finished products, and also Tadiran, which is leading the air conditioning manufacturer and indoor climate solution provider. So moving on with the introduction to our guest from Ford Motors, Jim McBride. Please introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit the vision of Ford towards the flying car sector.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jim McBride. I've been at Ford Motor Company for 37 years now. My background's in physics, but about a decade or so ago, I started the autonomous vehicle program, and we carried that in research until we spun off a production arm of the company to make these for commercial products. I've also been a private pilot for 37 years, and so I've been very interested in things that fly. And while I'm looking for new things beyond autonomous vehicles to do, flying cars is certainly at the top of the list. And if you're a company like Ford, one of your motivations is to try to move people and goods. And when we view how the future will expand, we don't see just cars on the road. We see cars connecting to other modes of transportation, and we want the user to have a seamless journey where they can get on one mode of transportation and then on another, and they connect effortlessly from one to another. And that's why we're interested in this space.
Nimrod, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit how you see the future of flying cars?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dana. So hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this great panel. A little bit about my background. I spent most of my life in the Israeli Air Force as a pilot. In parallel was involved in many acquisition and development programs in the urban and aerospace area. Retired 6 years ago, and since then assumed VP position with Amdocs for 4 years. And I joined Urban Aeronautics a year and a half ago and assumed the CEO position exactly 6 months ago. If there are 3 things that makes me really thrilled about leading this amazing team and vision that we have, it actually touches all 3 aspects of my professional life. 1 as a pilot, 2 as an engineer, and 3 as a manager. And in Urban Aeronautics, we understand that aviation changes in small bits, like a kind of evolution, yet once every few, I'd say, decades, there's a revolution. And we're right on the verge of such a revolution where aviation is going to be introduced into the urban environment. And we position ourselves to lead this revolution with a car-sized aircraft that can fly and land anywhere. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And last one, Patrick, can you introduce yourself and tell us your future, how you see it?
Hi, my name is Patrick Hessel. I'm the CEO of Aeromobile for the last year and a half. Previously, I built a carbon fiber components company for the automotive and aerospace industries. And at Aeromobile, since 2010, we are developing a vehicle that can drive on the road and convert into a flying car, basically an airplane that can fly. And so our vision of one of the solutions to to the flying car segment is a vehicle that offers you a full door-to-door solution where you can order your transport via an app, and you enter the flying car in front of your house and get delivered straight to your final destination completely seamlessly through using small airports rather than large airports.
Super interesting. Maybe we can continue with you, Patrick. Maybe you can share with us a little bit the challenges that you see specifically in 2021 and 2022 for your companies.
Well, there's different areas. One area is the technical. Then, of course, there's the regulatory challenge and the business challenge as such. From the technical point of view, we've now at the fourth iteration, so actually the fourth generation of prototype that we're flying. We've completed a 6-month testing program just recently as per the EASA CS23 test program. We have really nice results in terms of the flight stability and flight performance. But of course, we're continuing to test all the different requirements. And in terms of business, we are aiming with the first vehicle. The first vehicle shall be B2C, but then thereafter, the next vehicle is a B2B2C business model, which is to be operated basically by operators and to be ordered with an app. So it's really a complete change of how people move currently. And of course, there we're working on partnerships with both operators as well as currently with finding the right manufacturer for that much larger volume of program.
Nimrod, do you agree? Do you disagree? How is your challenges going on?
Yeah, I actually completely agree with Patrick. When we're looking on the aviation area, I think all of us recognize two main, I'd say, entry barriers towards the commercialization of this new technology. The first one would be definitely certification. So Patrick already mentioned EASA, or when you develop a drug, you have to address or a vaccine, you have to address the FDA. When you, like all of us, develop an aircraft, you have to address the FAA or EASA. So certification regulation definitely will be the first one. And just next to it would be public acceptance. Public acceptance has a lot to do with sustainability, with acoustics, with size, with infrastructure. So that would be the main overall challenges. For the short time, my company's challenges for 2021, or the way we're going to address them, that would be through funding and partnerships. We understand that the urban air mobility challenge must be addressed as an ecosystem, and you have to partner within the ecosystem. In that sense, what you're doing right now is amazing because you're helping us all build the ecosystem.
Nice. And what about Jim? How do you see it? It's a bit of a different angle. I mean, I guess is how a Ford company looks at it, rather than how these gentlemen are looking at it. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
Well, we see urban air mobility as part of the greater mobility problem of moving either people or goods from one point to another. And as I mentioned earlier, this could involve many modes of transportation. And from the customer standpoint, the customer just cares about a seamless journey, and the business challenges are to integrate all of these pieces together so you give the customer that seamless journey, and they don't have to struggle to connect one mode of transportation to another. And the challenges that we face in the near term are obviously, some of the ones that were already mentioned. Getting hardware certified and into the system with public acceptance. Additionally, trying to figure out the business models that will support a profitable solution and one that's acceptable to the customer.
Maybe you can share a little bit what Ford is doing in order to overcome these challenges as such a big company. If you have some sort of an example.
I think you'll find that Ford is doing efforts in other areas of mobility to sort of test how we connect things together. Like we had a ride share service. We also have a scooter business. And so from the business perspective, we're trying to understand how the customers can schedule and use these things and begin to accept them. From the point of view of flying cars, right now, we're not actually manufacturing anything. We're monitoring the space and trying to keep current with all of the players across the industry and trying to figure out when's the best time to take actions to move it forward. Now, one thing I will say is we have established a mobility corridor here in Southeast Michigan that connects Detroit with the university town of Ann Arbor. And it is planned that we'll have some vertiports on that corridor to encourage people to come and test their aircraft along with the other mobility solutions there.
Interesting. And do you think that flying cars will be for the rich and famous or for everyone? Jim?
Well, one of the things that Ford is noted for is to mass produce things in an affordable manner so that the general public has access to them. In the in the days before Henry Ford, most people never got more than about 30 miles from their house in a lifetime. And now everyone with private ownership of cars travels freely. And so we believe that mobility is sort of a basic human right. And we would want to, in the long term, provide ride services, whether they're on the ground or in the air, at a cost that's affordable to everybody. Now, that being said, when you start in this industry, there's going to be a limited number of aircraft available and a limited number of routes. So, there will be some supply and demand issues early on. And, not everyone will have access in the early days.
Nimrod, do you agree with that? How do you see it from your point of view?
So from our point of view, I definitely think that, like any other technology or advanced technology adoption, it will take time. It will take time because of the process. It will take time because of maturity, regulation, and because of psychology, right? And it will take time, but we're seeing things moving forward. I don't think that we're building a future only for the rich people. It will be the wrong vision to do, but definitely it will come in tranches. I believe that the first use cases to be introduced into the urban environment would probably be singular use cases like EMS, emergency medical services, and then probably to be followed with cargo and air shuttles, like from JFK to Manhattan, and only then, step by step, with the involvement of the physical infrastructure and the air traffic control capabilities, then it will grow all the way towards a new module of transportation, something very similar to what to what we're used to on the ground, mobility as a service, where the vision is that you will step out of somewhere in the 42nd and 5th, and you'll take your iPhone and you say, I want to go to Brooklyn Heights, and it will just direct you to the next vertiport, where you'll just enter a flying car that will take you there. Now, obviously, like Patrick's car, if you would like to own one, it would be amazing. So I believe, it's going to be very diversified. We will be there. One thing about psychology, I'd say 100 years ago, when you stepped into an elevator, which probably is the first vehicle, there was, a pilot standing just next to you, and he would ask you, the bellboy, which floor do you want to fly to? No one ever thought that you'd be able to step into an elevator by yourself, or even your kids, and fly themselves to the 14th floor by themselves. This is exactly what is going to happen in 20 years from now.
Patrick, do you agree with the first use case of emergency medical services and then cargo and shuttles then, or you think differently? It's really interesting to hear your point of view on this.
We have I would say, very differentiated product, and we are very differentiated from the eVTOL segment. We're not, developing eVTOL. Our vehicle is one that you can, you can use the existing road infrastructure and the air, and hence all the abundant general aviation, infrastructure. And the first vehicle we will bring to market in 2.5 years is actually meant for private owners. So given the high price point of about $1.7 million, it is obviously a product for a more exclusive market, but that's partially a comment, I would say, for the adoption of new technology that is not actually for everybody initially, and then over time, what we are looking to do is then the second vehicle to, as I said, operated through a ride sharing and ride hailing platform, and thereby democratizing the use of the flying car. And we are sitting in between, the car from a range perspective. What we're offering about 100 to 500 mile distance. So we're sitting between, let's say, the car and the plane, whereas, let's say, too long, too uncomfortable to drive with the car, yet it is too, relatively short to fly, because the flight may only be 40 minutes, but everything around it takes too long. So as such, through that sort of service going point to point, or door to door, we believe, that will be offered to larger percentage of the population. It will still be a premium service, but still not much more expensive than taking a let's say, business class flight.
Interesting. Patrick, what about the fuel? What will be the fuel of your flying car? I mean, what is it now, and what is it expected to be like in 10 years from today? Any change do you see in that area?
Yes, so we are starting currently with basically a hybrid combustion engine, type of system. So we are using, let's say, standard automotive technology, an automotive based engine. And that's we do that in order to reach that range of 500 plus miles. And however, satisfying the automotive emissions, the whole system is cleaner than the standard aircraft kind of engines and systems currently available, which are archaic and many decades old, really. And then on the road, it's basically a hybrid system with an electric engines driven by electricity generated by partially the combustion engine. And over time, as the battery energy density improves, and it will go to a fully electric system, but we currently we have to wait still for that to happen, because the range will simply not be good enough for what our customers would want to have. So we're looking more like towards the end of the 20s to have a fully electric system.
Nimrod, on the urban aeronautics side?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. So very much like Patrick, propulsion is always the heart of aviation for new development in aerospace. And very much like Patrick, we're starting, with the traditional powertrain. So yet in contrary to an aircraft that uses a short takeoff. When you go VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing, you actually need much more power. In that sense, currently and we already have a full-scale tech demo flyable aircraft that uses jet engine manufactured by Safran, which is one of the leading companies for jet engines in the world. Yet, as I previously said, we recognize that when we plan to introduce this aircraft to the urban environment, you have to make it fully sustainable, right? Nevertheless, energy density is something very important. And the batteries that are available today and probably in the near future are too heavy and not enough energized to VTOL our technology in and out of the city. And this is why we took a decision to skip the batteries, the lithium-ion technology, all the way to what we believe is the energy of the future, and that would be hydrogen fuel cell. Now, hydrogen fuel cell, if you know best, batteries today produce the energy density of 300 watts an hour. A hydrogen fuel cell powertrain can produce 20 times more energy. So even something around 7,000 watts an hour per 1 kilogram. So that is a huge difference. This technology already exists, in cars like Toyota Mirai and Honda Clarity. It is being matured by the automotive industry, which is amazing. I would love to hear what Ford has to say about this technology. And we plan to be the first VTOL to use hydrogen and flight.
Come on, Jim. Now you have to answer, Nimrod. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's true that Ford does have powertrains of all sorts of flavors. I think that for our use cases, we're envisioning mostly moving people and goods in urban environments initially. And in that context, the specific energy of existing electric batteries and powertrains is sufficient to satisfy the range and payload that we're looking at. We're not looking at regional carriage like some of the others have mentioned. So, we're not forced to go to hydrocarbon fuels or other choices for the missions that we're looking at.
Interesting. What about the noise? I mean, I can imagine I'm sitting next to the window and I can hear the trucks moving and the noise is terrible. And I know experts are putting a lot of attention to that. Are you measuring the noise? Any, expectations on how to reduce the noise that the flying cars is? Nimrod, I see maybe you can take the lead on this.
I would say, as a private pilot myself for the last 4 decades, one of the issues that small airports always have is complaints about the noise profile. And in commercial aviation in the United States, we used to have helicopter services, 5 decades ago, flying around, in major cities, and noise again was an issue. And with electric powertrains and distributed electric power with the propulsion not in just one place but in multiple places on the aircraft, you can drive the noise profile down to where it's barely noticeable on the ground, much less in the air. And so this, I think, is one of the largest impediments to consumer acceptance. People will not want to have noisy aircraft overhead, and they'll have to be designed in such a fashion. And I'll throw in one side note here. I'm sitting here and because we're talking Zoom internationally, my computer is overworking and the fan on my computer is running, and I'm annoyed even by that noise. So it's something that we're very sensitive to.
Nimrod?
I agree and disagree. Let's make it interesting.
Finally.
You're doing a good job. Well, definitely acoustics, is a leading factor in terms of public acceptance. And this is very, very important. we're already measuring, not calculating, measuring a quarter of the acoustic signature of a reference helicopter, which is very important. We're using with our aircraft, we're using a ducted fan technology. We call this technology a fancraft, like there's an aircraft, rotorcraft, we call it fancraft. So we're already measuring in our flight test a quarter, and we're going to reduce, we plan to reduce it all the way down to 1/10. Now, and the other side, you know, of the part of the answer, Jim's answer, actually address the origin of the noise, because the noise actually, most of the noise with helicopters do not come from the propulsion, from the engine, but from the tip speed. And when you have a high tip speed, you get a lot of noise. This is why with helicopters, many times you would hear this whoop whoop, because the tip speed is very close to the Mach number. Now, if you're with our aircraft, we're already using a 0.7 Mach number in our tip speed, and we're going to reduce it all the way down to 0.5. So we're actually aiming to be 70 dB within 500 feet. So this is pretty much similar to a noisy street level. And so one thing that I do not agree with Jim is that DEP, distributed electric propulsion, would be quieter because of, so the high tip speed with these rotors create a lot of noise. So all of our kids have those little drones. They are noisy, exactly like this, the noise that you get from your vent in your computer. So it's going to be, definitely is going to be a challenge, but we will address it pretty successfully.
Patrick, what are you doing for noise checking and preparing?
Yeah, first I want to say that our objective is our vehicle does not take off from the garden, which actually I think none of the eVTOLs will. It's not taking off from directly from the city center. So we will always move outside to a nearby close, small airport, which I think is a key to avoid noise, to not create the noise where people really, where the high, majority of people live, or high density of the population is. And also compared to helicopters, we are significantly less noisy. I would say we are in line with, I would say, standard small aircraft, and we definitely satisfy the, EASA and FAA noise, regulation and noise requirements with our concept.
Okay, last questions. In 1947, Henry Ford said, "Mark my word, a combination of airplane and motor car is coming. You may smile, but it will come." So the last question that I really want to ask this dear panelist is that, do you think that your kids will go to work in flying cars? I mean, maybe you give your personal view on this. We can start with Patrick.
Already in just about 3 years, we want to bring to market the first flying car. That's the first thing. And I think that over time, over a couple of tens of years, there will be more and more flying cars, both the type of vehicle that we are offering, which is more for the somewhat longer range, as well as the VTOL, which is more for the urban area. And for that area, for those kind of mission profiles, I think the VTOL is very also efficient, and will have a good cost profile to enable the wider population to use that.
Jim?
Well, it's always dangerous to predict the future. I don't think any of us would have predicted we'd be having a meeting virtually like this at the moment. So whether my kids are
face to face.
Yeah, whether my kids are working virtually or whether they're traveling by air, I'm not going to predict. But what I will say is the convergence of all of the enabling technologies and the incentive to move people around more efficiently is definitely going to result in us seeing more travel by modes of transportation like eVTOLs and things like that. I'm highly confident we'll see that in the next couple of decades reach maturity.
Nimrod?
So, so referring to, you know, your Ford's quote, I think that the vision that he was stating back then is actually coming to life nowadays. And actually what we're doing here is exactly a part of that. And we're driving that. And it's not just the combination of a car and an airplane, it's the combination of aviation and the automotive industry. And this is why this meeting is this panel is so interesting, because we're on an era where the aerospace industry or the traditional aerospace industry has done some things and are moving towards some, you know, changes. There's a lot of startups, and the automotive industry is stepping towards getting in eVTOL and the technology innovation. We're seeing that, you know, we're seeing that with Toyota and Hyundai, and definitely there's a lot of interest from both sides for this collaboration. So in that sense, I think that Ford was definitely a visionary as well. Yes, I think that I don't know if they will travel to work, you know, using flying cars, but they will definitely not make a big deal out of it as we are. For them, it will be straightforward.
Thank you so much, Jim, Nimrod, Patrick. I want to thank you for discussing with me about this near future of flying cars. It was my pleasure, and hope to see you soon, face to face, in the next EcoMotion event.
Thank you very much, Donna.
Thank
Thank you.
you.